students. Today we shall learn about chemical reactions and equations. Let us understand what a chemical reaction is. So a chemical reaction is a process where the reactant gets converted into a product, and the reaction may be under the influence of a catalyst. Let us look at a few chemical reactions. I shall perform the reactions here and I shall write the equations on the board. So let us have a look at the reactions. So I have a magnesium ribbon here. This is a spirit lamp. With the help of a pair of tongs, I'm going to heat the magnesium ribbon over the fire and let us see what happens. So here the magnesium ribbon is using the oxygen from the air to burn. Let us look at the flame. We should not directly focus on the flame. It's a dazzling flame. So we should either wear the goggles while burning it, or we should not directly look at this flame. So what do you observe? That the magnesium ribbon catches fire and produces a white dazzling flame. I have turned off the spirit lamp to prevent any accident. So I have the magnesium oxide collected here. Let us look at what the reaction was. So I had one of the reactant. So this is chapter 1, chemical reactions and equations. So the first reaction that I have performed is that I had magnesium ribbon. I burnt it in air. The magnesium utilized oxygen from the air and produced magnesium oxide. So magnesium and oxygen were the reactants and magnesium oxide is a product. Let us look at yet another reaction. I have this solution, a blue solution here. This blue solution is copper sulfate solution. So I pour a small quantity of copper sulfate into this test tube, and for holding the test tube I use a test tube holder. So the solution is blue in color, and I'm putting a thumb pin which is made up of iron. So iron is a greyish black metal. When it is rusted, it turns reddish. So after putting this nail, I'm putting yet another nail, that is the awl pin, the bell pin here. So we are letting this solution to stay for some time, this mixture to stay for some time. There are two iron pins in the copper sulfate solution. I'm going to observe after some time as to what changes happen here. Then there's another reaction that I'm going to perform for you here is that I have the solution of potassium iodide and lead nitrate. Again, using the test tube holder, I'm pouring the small quantity of potassium iodide solution into this test tube. Putting back, the reagent bottle must be closed immediately after you use the solution. In the other test tube, I'm taking a small quantity of lead nitrate solution. Similar quantity, though I have not measured it. So I have two solutions with me. One is potassium iodide solution, another is lead nitrate solution. Let us see what happens when we mix the two. Oh, there's an immediate reaction, instantaneous reaction, and there's a yellow precipitate. Let us look at the equation as to what happens in the reaction. The reactants are potassium iodide and lead nitrate. Here this is in the solution form and this is also in the solution form, and solutions are indicated by AQ, aqueous solutions. And as a result there is a formation of potassium nitrate and lead iodide, and this yellow precipitate that you observe is lead iodide. So these are the reactants and these are the products. I'll make a correction here. This was aqueous solution. Aqueous solution, and this was a solid here and this was a gas here. As a result we obtained a solid. We'll learn about all these as to how these notations are given. Now let us look at what happened to our blue solution of copper sulfate. So after shaking it and putting it again for some more time, I don't see much change here. So we have one more reaction to see. We have sodium sulfate solution here and the barium chloride solution here. So again, pouring the sodium sulfate. This time I am using a dropper to pour the solution. This is sodium sulfate and we have barium chloride here. So when I add barium chloride to sodium sulfate, again this instantaneous formation of a white precipitate. Let's again look at what happens in this reaction. The third reaction that we performed was barium chloride aqueous solution, sodium sulfate aqueous solution, formation of a white precipitate of barium sulfate, and there's formation of a solution of sodium chloride. Let's balance this reaction also. Oh, it's already balanced. Now what do you observe in these reactions? That either there was evolution of there was a white dazzling flame here, so along with formation of magnesium oxide there was evolution of heat. A lot of heat was evolved. In this reaction there is a yellow precipitate formation and there was a color change also. In this reaction again white precipitate and there was a color change. So in chemical reactions you get to see certain changes which help you, which guide you that there is some change happened. Let us look at the copper sulfate solution now. Do you see any change in the color? The blue solution is slowly turning greenish. We can try the reaction of copper sulfate with magnesium also. So this is magnesium ribbon. I am taking a small piece of magnesium ribbon and adding it to a small quantity of copper sulfate. Again letting it wait for some time. So what do you see? There is a gas being evolved here. There is a gas being evolved here. There is a displacement reaction, but at the same time there is evolution of hydrogen also. Magnesium being a reactive metal, though I am treating it with copper sulfate, so sorry, copper sulfate. It's supposed to give a reaction. So there are two reactions happening here. One is that magnesium sulfate is formed and copper metal is displaced. You observe that on the magnesium ribbon there is a brown, reddish brown coat, and the solution is fading. The color of the solution is fading. Magnesium sulfate wouldn't have a color, whereas copper sulfate had a color. But there is yet another reaction, that magnesium reacted with water, producing magnesium hydroxide and hydrogen gas. And there is evolution of heat. If you touch this boiling tube, you sense the heat. So there is evolution of a gas as well as heat, energy in the form of heat. So all these reactions guide us about certain changes which are known as characteristics of chemical reactions. So I am discarding these solutions. Now let us study about each of these cases. So in this reaction there was characteristics of chemical reactions we are studying. First, there was evolution of heat. Second, change in color. Third, precipitate formation. Precipitate formation. Then evolution of gas. So we notice certain changes which indicate that a chemical reaction has taken place, and these are known as characteristics of chemical reactions. When we use symbols and formulae, here we use a symbol of magnesium, we use the formula of oxygen, formula of potassium iodide, lead nitrate. So when we use symbols and formulae to represent the chemical reaction, then we call it a chemical equation. So how do we identify a chemical reaction? We've just learnt about it, that there are changes, the change in state of a matter could be there. So when you notice that oxygen was utilized in the reaction of magnesium metal with air, then oxygen did change its state. It was no more in the gas in the products. There is change in color, evolution of a gas, change in temperature. These are a few of the characteristics of chemical reactions. What is a chemical reaction? So a chemical reaction is when the reactants change into products, and a chemical equation is one which is used to represent a chemical reaction with the help of symbols and formulae. So this slide shows you the reaction of magnesium metal with air, or burning of magnesium metal. Burning is always supported by oxygen present in air, or oxygen is always used in burning process. How do you balance a chemical equation? Let us look at the steps of balancing of a chemical equation. So I am going to erase this and look at the first equation. In a chemical equation, we always write the reactants on the left hand side and the products on the right hand side. So after we had performed this reaction, we noticed that magnesium was one of the reactant, oxygen was another reactant, the product was magnesium oxide. The reactants are written on the left hand side, whereas the products are written on the right hand side. What do we do first when we balance a chemical equation? That we draw boxes around each of the reactants and the products once we have written them. That will ensure that we do not alter the symbols of formulae. We simply can multiply them with certain numbers, but we cannot change their symbols of formulae. So So we draw boxes. Now what we look at, we draw a table. We draw a table of the reactants on the left hand side and products on the right hand side. So this is about reactants and this is about products. And here we list all the elements involved in the reaction. So here the element and the number of atoms of each element is to be listed here. Same for the same elements, the number of atoms of each element in the product side. So if in this case we had elements like magnesium and oxygen, and in the reactants we have one atom of magnesium involved and two atoms of oxygen involved. Among the products we have a single product here, so it's magnesium 1 and oxygen 1. So here on the reactant side we had one magnesium, on the product side also we had one magnesium, but oxygen is not balanced. On the reactant side we had two and on the product side we had one oxygen atom. Now since we have already drawn a box around magnesium oxide, or it's already closed in a box, we cannot alter the formula. The formula of magnesium oxide cannot be MgO2. The formula of magnesium oxide is definite, fixed, it's MgO. What we can do to balance is that we can only multiply this molecule by 2. When we multiply it by 2, we get this one multiplied by 2 and we get this one also multiplied by 2. Oxygen gets balanced, but magnesium among the product sides only is 2 atoms and on the reactant side it's only 1 atom, so we multiply this also by 2. When we multiply this by 2, put the number 2 and this equation gets balanced. Any equation that we balance follows the same steps. We'll look at just one more example of balancing a chemical equation. So we look at a little difficult one. When iron, red hot iron is treated with steam, we get ferric oxide and we get hydrogen gas. So iron red hot but in solid state reacts with steam, so water is in the gaseous state. It gives Fe3O4, that is ferric oxide, and hydrogen gas. Let us list the elements here. We have iron involved, we have hydrogen involved, and we have oxygen involved. So we have Fe, we have H, and we have O. Among the reactants, we have one atom of iron. In the products, we have 3. Hydrogens 2 and hydrogens 2. Oxygen 1 and oxygen 4. Now how do we begin? We first look at the element which is in the highest quantity. In this case it's the oxygen which is in the highest quantity. Oxygen is 4. There are 4 atoms of oxygen among the products. So we multiply this H2O by 4 to obtain 4 here. So we multiply this by 4, but as soon as we multiply this by 4, even hydrogen gets multiplied by 4. So we get 8 atoms of hydrogen among the reactants, but there are only 2 among the products. So we multiply this also by 4. We do it there, 4. So this gets balanced, this gets balanced. So as soon as we multiply this by 4, hydrogens become 8 and we multiply this by 4. So this gets balanced. Now there are 3 atoms of iron among the products, but there is only 1, so we multiply this also by 3. Putting 3 here balances the chemical equation. So that's how we balance the chemical equation. So any equation that you have can be balanced following these steps. Now we are going to look at the types of chemical reactions. So we go back to the same reactions that we had performed a while ago. I'll again list the equations that I had written for those reactions. We burnt magnesium ribbon in air to obtain magnesium oxide. The balanced chemical equation was this. We treated potassium iodide with lead nitrate to obtain lead iodide yellow precipitate and potassium nitrate. So we get the reaction balanced like this. Then we treated the barium chloride with sodium sulfate and we obtained barium sulfate white precipitate sodium chloride solution. And we had treated the magnesium with copper sulfate. We obtained, see, this is almost colorless now, the color has faded. So magnesium sulfate and copper. There's still further change in this, that the iron nail is getting a coat of copper metal, that is copper metal is being freed. So we'll look at this reaction also, that we treated iron with copper sulfate solution and we obtained FeSO4, a green solution, and copper metal gets displaced. Then there was one more reaction that we talked about, that when magnesium reacts with water forms magnesium hydroxide and hydrogen gas is separated. So when we balance this, hydrogens 2 and oxygens 2, hydrogens are 4. This is balanced now. We are going to look at one more reaction here before we talk about types of reactions. So I'm going to light up this spirit lamp once again. I have an empty dry boiling tube here and I'll take the test tube holder to hold this boiling tube because I'm going to heat it. And there is lead nitrate salt with me. Using a deflagrating spoon, I'm going to put some of the lead nitrate salt in this boiling tube, closing the bottle. Now placing this lead nitrate, the boiling tube with the lead nitrate salt on the flame, and observe what happens in this case. What all changes happen? You see the fumes condensing over the inner side of the boiling tube. These are water vapors. Do you hear some sound? This is a crackling sound here. So when lead nitrate is heated, a crackling sound is produced. So in a chemical reaction, sound may also be produced. Let us look at what happens when I bring a burning mastic near the mouth. So this mastic grows brighter because oxygen gas is involved in this case. And you see brown fumes of nitrogen dioxide being produced. This reaction is a different type of reaction. We're going to look at the brown fumes. There is a crackling sound and there is mastic which is burning. When brought into contact with the gas evolved, it burns brightly. So we are turning off the, putting it here. Let us look at what happened in this reaction. Lead nitrate on heating gives lead oxide PbO. The valency of oxygen is 2 and that of lead is also 2. There is evolution of nitrogen dioxide and oxygen. And the reaction is balanced. What happened in this case? So this is a decomposition reaction. So let's look at each of these cases as to what goes here. 2 reactants, 1 product. So the reaction is like A plus B gives C. When a reaction happens between 2 or more reactants and there's formation of a single product, we call this a combination reaction. So combination reaction is one wherein the reactants are 2 or more but product is just 1. The second case here, the potassium iodide had potassium ions and the iodide ions in the solution. Lead nitrate had lead ions and nitrate ions in the solution. So these both were active solutions. These ions were exchanged with each other and you get lead iodide, which was a precipitate and a solution of potassium nitrate. Such reactions are called as double displacement reactions. This one is also a double displacement reactions because the barium ions and chloride ions are produced by barium chloride, sodium ions and sulfate ions are produced by sodium sulfate, and the ion exchange leads to formation of a precipitate of barium sulfate and a solution of sodium chloride. So these two are cases of double displacement reactions, whereas the fourth case, magnesium displaces copper metal or iron displaces copper metal from its salt solution, freeing the copper metal and forming salt of magnesium or iron. Such reactions are displacement reactions. This one, magnesium displacing hydrogen from water, is also a displacement reaction, whereas the last one is a decomposition reaction. So these are the different types of reactions. Combination reactions, where 2 or more than 2 reactants combine to form a single product, like calcium oxide. In the slaking of lime, the quick lime, that is calcium oxide, when treated with water gives slaked lime. The process is known as slaking of lime. The product is slaked lime, and this reaction is accompanied by evolution of heat. So reactions in which heat is released along with the formation of products are also known as exothermic chemical reactions. Most of the combination reactions are exothermic in nature. Burning of fuels is an exothermic reaction. We burn fuels to produce energy, and whenever there is energy or heat evolved in the reaction, these reactions are known as exothermic reactions. Endothermic reactions are those where the heat is absorbed. So during digestion, food is broken down into simpler substances, energy is utilized, and hence it's endothermic. Next, we had a look at the decomposition reaction. We heated lead nitrate and decomposed lead nitrate into lead oxide, nitrogen dioxide and oxygen. Here it is an example of ferrous sulfate. When heated, the ferrous sulfate crystals, green crystals of ferrous sulfate, when heated, they'll produce ferric oxide, sulfur dioxide and oxygen gas, sulfur dioxide gases. So these are, this is also an example of thermal decomposition. When heat is used to produce or to carry out a decomposition reaction, we call it a thermal decomposition reaction. Next is the case of electrolytic decomposition. When decomposition reaction is carried out using electricity, all the electrolytic processes are electrolytic decomposition reactions. If you carry out the electrolysis of water, on the at the cathode you get hydrogen gas, and at the anode you get oxygen gas. They are produced in the proportion of 2:1 by volume. If the sunlight is used to break a reactant into 2 or more products, then it is a photolytic decomposition reaction. Here silver chloride, when exposed to sunlight, decomposes to produce silver and chlorine gas, silver metal and chlorine gas. Photolytic reactions are used in black and white photography. The decomposition reactions require energy either in the form of heat. If heat is used, then they are called as thermal decomposition reactions. If electricity is used, they are electrolytic decomposition reactions. And if sunlight or light is used, then it is photolytic decomposition. So we have learned 3 types of decomposition reactions. Displacement reactions, we have seen 2 examples, and there is another example here. When zinc metal is treated with hydrogen sulfide gas, the hydrogen the sulfur here is going to combine with zinc, so hydrogen is displaced by zinc. So zinc displaces hydrogen, so it's a displacement reaction. Examples of displacement reactions, there are a few more examples given here. Zinc reacting with copper sulfate, producing zinc sulfate and copper. Aluminium reacting with copper sulfate, producing aluminium sulfate and copper. Iron reacting with copper sulfate, producing copper and iron ferrous sulfate. Lead reacting with cupric chloride produces lead chloride and copper is displaced. So copper is less reactive than most of these metals. This is calcium bromide reacting with silver nitrate, producing silver bromide and calcium nitrate, and this is not a displacement reaction, it's a double displacement reaction. So let us look at double displacement reactions. Reactions in which there is an exchange of ions between the reactants, they are known as double displacement reactions, and these reactions are mostly precipitation reactions also, because an insoluble substance is formed which is known as a precipitate. Any reaction that produces a precipitate can be called a precipitation reaction. So examples of precipitation reactions, we've already had a look at 2 precipitation reactions. Oxidation and reduction reactions. If a substance gains oxygen during a reaction, it is said to be oxidized, and if a substance loses oxygen during a reaction, it is said to be reduced. There is yet another concept. If a substance gains hydrogen, that is said to be reduction, and if a substance loses hydrogen, that is said to be oxidation. So there is an oxygen concept, there is a hydrogen concept. Then if one reactant gets oxidized while the other gets reduced during a reaction, such reactions are called as redox reactions or oxidation reduction reactions. If a substance gains oxygen or loses hydrogen during a reaction, it is oxidized. If a substance loses oxygen and gains hydrogen, it is said to be reduced. Either of the case can fulfill the need for oxidation or reduction process. Let us look at the examples of redox reactions. So here in the first case, the sodium metal is losing electrons, and the electrons are being accepted by chlorine, and there is a formation of sodium chloride. So the sodium metal, when loses electrons, is said to be oxidized. That means loss of electrons is also known as oxidation, and gain of electrons is known as reduction. So chlorine is getting reduced by gaining 2 electrons, whereas sodium metal is getting oxidized by losing 1 electron each atom. Another example of a redox reaction. Here methane burns in air, producing carbon dioxide and water. So methane is losing hydrogen and gaining oxygen. It's oxidation. So oxidation of methane is happening, whereas oxygen is getting hydrogen to produce water. So hydrogen is added here, it's a reduction. So reduction and oxidation happens simultaneously. When one substance gets oxidized, the other one gets reduced. The substance which provides oxygen to bring about oxidation reaction is known as oxidizing agent, and a substance which accepts oxygen or provides hydrogen for reduction, that's said to be a reducing agent. Now we have the concept of corrosion and rancidity, which is related to oxidation. You must have seen so many metals. Metals as such or by nature are expected to be shiny. But most things that you see around you, the iron gets rusted or the silver gets blackened, copper develops a black coating around it. These are examples where the metals react with the oxygen present in air, and they produce metal oxides which are dull. Aluminium objects turn dull, they would also have a blackish coat around them. This process of eating away of the top surface of metals due to reaction with moist air is known as corrosion. So corrosion of most metals happens due to oxygen present in air, while in the case of certain metals like copper reacts with the carbon dioxide present in air, produces basic cupric carbonate. So corrosion is due to formation of carbonate. In case of silver, the corrosion is due to formation of the sulfide, silver sulfide, which is black in color. So corrosion is basically the surface of metal getting attacked by moist air. You must have noticed sometimes when you buy wafers, potato wafers from market, you open the packet and you consume it. But if you store it for some time, the taste and the smell of the food changes. This process of oxidation of oils and fats, even the oil that you use for frying, it cannot be used repeatedly because its taste changes. The pakoras fried in the fresh oil and the pakoras fried in the reused oil, the taste and the smell would be different. So when oils and fats get oxidized, that process is known as rancidity. To prevent the rancidity of the snacks or the wafers that you buy from market is prevented by filling those packets with inert gases like nitrogen. So we prevent rancidity by filling the packets with inert gases like nitrogen, whereas corrosion can be prevented by several methods, like iron surface is often painted, electroplated, greased, oiled or galvanized. Sometimes we make alloys to prevent corrosion of metals. That is all for today, students. Thank you so much.